Welcome to London. Welcome to Sound of Hope. I'm your host, Wei Fang.
And I'm Kathy Zhang.
Sorry, we're a little bit late, but we'll do some catch up. Anyway, so as we all know that the 200 companies, big name companies, has joined the effort to boycott or criticize the Georgia voting law that was just passed last week. Mm-hmm. And we want to bring you the full detail and what's happening behind it and what is special at the end of it. We do see a lot of depth in this matter, okay, on this matter. And it will be related to, indeed, how communism work. I think it's very illustrating. If you can, stay with us until the end of it. And hopefully, we can all learn from this, learn from this incident so that we can all be smarter. Now, let's just take a look at the recent development. Kathy, you want to share with us?
So now we know that almost like 200 corporations has sided with corporate companies like Delta and Coca-Cola and Major League Baseball, and to basically criticize Georgia passed this voting law. But actually, in the MLB, actually they announced that they will move the All-Star game to Colorado. Yep. Right? Denver, Colorado. So, but maybe let's talk about why they the reason they kind of boycott Georgia is the so-called value, right? But is that really the reason? Mm-hmm. And let's first take a look at the voting law, the differences of a voting law in Georgia and Colorado. So just for example, about the early voting, the in-person early voting days. In Georgia, it's now actually it's expanded to 17 days. In Colorado, it's only 15 days. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's worse than in Georgia, according to, if they are really saying that they wanted to more access to the voting, right? And also about the voter ID. In both states, they all require voter ID, okay? And other things like if you can distribute food, to the voters who are in line. And basically these two states, they have little bit different requirements, but they all have some restrictions. The reason is they just try to avoid some political groups or activists trying to influence the voters. And one thing is really interesting is African American population in both states are drastically different. In Georgia, it's over 50%. In Colorado, it's only less than 10%. So if for those who are against Georgia's voting law, saying that they are disenfranchise the African American voters, how about when they move to Colorado, there's only less than 10% of African Americans. So it doesn't really sound reasonable or make sense, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the first point I want to point out is putting on my commentator's hat. This is in Chinese we call it 杀鸡儆猴. Okay, kill the chicken to scare the monkey. English that's called beat the dog before the lion. Right? there are 361 bills that is on the voting integrity that was progressing in the state legislatures. Georgia is the leading one that have that passed. But in that process, the bill has been watered down. Okay, there's no signature verification that was taken out, mm-hmm. which is apparently is a very makes sense, reasonable way of verifying a signature. A ballot is a ballot, but that was taken out. It is a very mild piece of law. However, and the ultra left make a big fuss out of it. Okay, and the purpose is to beat the dog before the lion, scare the other, red state off. Don't do this because you're going to get hurt, things like that.
Yeah. Oh, I saw like Dave and Judy, they don't realize there are about 200 companies sign up. And Dave said we need to know the names. It's a long list.
Yeah, I want to tell you about these 200 companies. It's a very long list. If I read the list, you won't like it, okay? Because you're talking about basically the largest company in the U.S. They all sign up on that. But I do want to, peel it open and then share with you with my observation. First, let me read them to you, okay? The first pack of company, they came out last week, the Delta, which is headquartered in Atlanta. And the Coca-Cola is headquartered in Atlanta. The MLB, Major League Baseball, their All-Star game was supposed to be there on the July 13th, okay? And their headquarters is not there, but it's just they rotated among different cities. So they took that out and moved that to Colorado. But among all the companies that has signed up on that so-called statement that criticized the voting law of the Georgia, they are PayPal, Uber, Lyft, Microsoft, United Airlines, American Airlines, Delta Airlines, Cisco, HP, and Spirit, right? Spirit Airline, Twitter, Apple, Facebook, Dow Jones,
Home Depot,
and the Southwest, and Dell, AT&T, Estée Lauder, Salesforce, Home Depot, CBS, Target, and Citigroup, UPS, Merck, Reddit, Snap, American Express, and so on and so forth. All right. So, but I need to suggest to you that we have to separate them apart. Two-pack. One is the three company, which will be focused on Delta, Coca-Cola, and Major League Baseball, and the other 200 companies. Actually, precisely, it's like 173 companies. Okay, we'll talk about that separately. But let's talk about those three companies first, because they're the first pack who came out. And President Trump said, he said this. He said, we should boycott them. We got more people, and so Major League Baseball is apparently doing a big disservice to themselves, right? Mm-hmm. Because it's pushing away their main audience.
Yeah, and like Wall Street Journal had an article saying that these corporate executives are really basically killing themselves, right? Because the shareholders, the consumers, at least half of them are not with them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but why those companies still sign up on the list?
Just another example. Rand Paul, the senator, said, he said, why does Coca-Cola want to do business only in the Democrat state? They want whoever drink Coca-Cola are the only Democrat? He said, if so, God love them. So it's apparently it's just work against themselves. And how do they do that? Why do they do that? Right? What's lying behind it? That's the main topic of today.
Right. And so let's, we just did a little bit more dig. And for example, the Major League Baseball. It turns out that they have been developing their business in China since 2007. They set up an office in Beijing in that year and has been working, just had different events, and they did put a lot of effort in the schools, in the campus in China, try to kind of nurture a baseball culture. Mm-hmm. And they trained those high school students, middle school students in China, and they also work with the fashion industry in China, just really trying to boost the image and their profits in China. Actually, but unfortunately, at least according to the report I saw, in the first 10 years, up to 2017, the development in China for them is not profitable at all. It's really not smooth. Okay, but however, they are still working on it. For example, in 2018. MLB actually partnered with Tencent. We know Tencent, the company, the largest network company, right, in China. They signed up a three-year partnership, and now they just renewed the partnership. Okay, and also, and the Tencent, who's Tencent? Tencent is one of the companies that. In the President Trump's era, was considering to list them as being manipulated by the PLM, right? People's
PLA.
PLA, yeah.
People's Republic Army. People Liberation Army.
Liberation Army, yeah. And also, for example, the Delta airline. So we were wondering, like, why Delta airline just jump on the wagon, so soon, right? And it turns out that Delta has been working with MLB as its official promoter in China. Okay, so basically, they all have the shadow of a CCP behind it,
Yeah.
and like MLB, the company, they denounce those Georgia, they denounce Georgia's constituents, but in China, for example, they work with another company. Actually, it just happened end of last year, December of last year, okay, and so it's just. And one of the company, it was funded by the Beijing's municipal government.
And in the statement of the MLB, Major League Baseball, they said that their decision was the best way to demonstrate our values as a sport. Apparently not, because they are trying to boycotting the voting law of Georgia, which is a very mild law. It's not a law that designed to oppress people and killing people, torture people like a CCP does. But in the meantime, they are just in the same week they signed a deal with Tencent, which is working with the CCP, including to censor the NBA last year when one of the NBA coach was criticizing the CCP's act in Hong Kong. You remember that? And then so it's just. It's just hypocritical, right? And then, but they still say so. But what I want to say is this: as I just read to you a lot of big names, how did they get their name onto that letter, on that statement, right? It's apparently work against their interest, but they still chose to do so. So what's lying behind? That's really something I want to find out. Okay. So first, let me just share you what I know, what I find out so far. There's this gentleman, his name is called Kenneth Chenault. He's the managing director and chairman of a venture capital firm called General Catalyst. All right? And between 2011 and 2018, he's also the former CEO of American Express. Okay? And Mr. Chenault is African American. So he led an effort last week and recruited and found and just convinced, however you call it, 72 black executives in those biggest company to issue a joint statement on the Georgia voting law. And then through those executives, they went on to convince those 200 companies. And then in their demand, it's not in their request or demand, okay, it's not just really just sign up on that statement. They asked those 200 companies to cancel their project and cancel their business in the state of Georgia. All right? Just take one example, Microsoft. Microsoft is planning to open a new hub in the state of, in the Atlanta. All right? So they asked them, just sign up this and then they cancel that project. Microsoft didn't do it. They signed the name and still went on with the project. Okay, this is a reflection of how those companies think. Okay, first, they are not willing to do this. All right, and second, they are not willing to, lead the effort, let alone lead the effort. However, the lobbying force, okay, the coercion, the effort behind it is very strong. Okay, it's very strong. It's very well organized, very systematic, and very strong. And for example, in the case of Major League Baseball, right? Major League Baseball, one of the major sponsors is the Delta. Just think about that, okay? Is it possible if they're able to convince Delta to issue this, criticism, and then Delta could have some influence upon Major League Baseball, which seldom made a statement like this before. Okay, it's very rare for Major League Baseball to do something like this. Okay, it's unprecedented in a certain sense. Anyway, so what I want to share you with is this: there's systematic, very careful, behind the scene work to convince those companies to give their name. All right, and then even they are not willing to, even though they know it's against their interest, they still make it. They will still were moved to do this, right? What I want to say is this, okay? When somebody's here, there's a wind, only the wind from one side, only the wind from one side. There's no other wind from the other side. And this person, very likely, he will tilt. He will lean.
Yeah, if it does not have a backbone.
If it does not have a backbone.
Right.
And how much backbone does those companies have? As you know that, I bet none of them would be boycotting the Beijing Olympics in the 2022, the Winter Olympics.
Right, that's another topic.
Yeah,
right?
but they dare to boycott a lot of things in this country. Okay, so they don't have backbone. Most of them, they just make money, right? And then if there's a wind just over there, only like that, there's no other side, they will lean. They will tilt. I think basically that's what happened. Okay, that's what happened. Now the next question is, what shall be done about it, right?
Yeah, actually there was Louis in our audience saying, that's what we should be doing.
Yeah, what we should do. I think I have read enough, okay, about people saying, I don't drink Coke anymore. I fully understand. Yeah, if they do that, why do they? Why you may not want to drink Coke, or you may not want to buy Delta. Okay, you got other choices if you have other choices, right? And Trump is saying that we got more people. Let's don't watch the baseball. What's the big deal about that? He said it's not fun to watch now. Anyway, that's one way, right? Apparently, I'm not advocating this. Okay, I'm a journalist, right? I'm really just presenting you with this. This is one of the options. A lot of people will naturally pick. Another option is this. Another option is the right to the CEO and the board of those companies. Each citizen just do that. Okay, write to them.
So I think Wei's point is when you just say, okay, I don't drink the Coca-Cola anymore, I don't consume with this company anymore, but these companies won't know that you are doing that to make a statement. So, maybe just because there's a strong wind coming from the other side, there should be another side of the wind to counter.
Yeah, so when there's only wind from one side, if there's wind from the other side, either in the form of, you can say boycott, after wait another quarter report, they can sense that, well, is that possible? But why don't you make it explicit? Just write to them, reason with them. I'm a consumer, I don't like you doing this. This is wrong, this is gonna hurting you. It's apparently will hurt them, right? Just take that effort and express your point of view. But even that is not my main point today, okay? I want to give you the motivation to do that. Okay, let me explain that, okay? So what happened in this country, fundamentally, in my observation, is something very, very, hideous and very, very gigantic. This under the water, communist force has been, working here for over 100 years. Since 1960, they become bigger. They take shape, and then now in the 2020, they rise above the water. Okay, they show themselves, right? As I shared with you before, in 1967, this word of march within the institution was this term was coined, and they meant it. And then, so in certain sense, what is changing this country? They all have a reason. They have a common reason. They're leading down there to the American version of the communism, which actually have the same gene and the same source and the same origin as the Chinese communism. So by comparing them, we know the difference. We know the commonality, and we know how to deal with that. Let me explain. Okay. Again, as I shared with you before, I just add some other element. When the small CCP started in China in 1921, they only have 20 people. Okay. As I shared with you before, they convinced the farmers that all the landlords are evil people and you are unfairly treated. You need to revolt against them. You need to take the land over, and you need to become the owner of the land, and so on and so forth. Okay. You need to break this oppression. Not just farmers. They convince the workers, the capitalists they are all evil people. They convert all the intellectuals that the government at that time, the Nationalist Party, they are tyranny. Okay? You don't have the freedom to speak although they do have a lot of freedoms to speak, but they convince them, just how they convince, the black people in this country that this is a systematically discriminating nation, okay? They convince them, those intellectuals, you are not fairly treated, okay? This is tyranny in China. They convince the so-called national capitalist, okay, and to join their force, saying that, well, for the good of this country, we need to be against the international, capitalist, things like that. And so on and so forth. They build this so-called unified front, right? Mm-hmm. Unified front. They focus on one type of enemy. The enemy are the landlord in the countryside, because it's the farmers, and those are the biggest group of people. The landlord and the nationalist party. Those are their enemy. They just unite everybody they can unite and just hit on them. And how to unite them? They create a very, very beautiful lies. Or give them a promise. They just make a promise. Great future. We're going to create a society where there's no oppression, no exploitation, and everybody's equal, a paradise in the human world. That's literally the word that they told them. Mm-hmm. Okay? And they bought it. Farmers, by joining you, I can get land. Really? Okay? So they built their force that way, and then that came to the 1949. After 1949, they won. They got the power. After they got the power, what did they do? In 1953, they said, we're gonna have a joint venture between the state and your national capitalist. It's called 公私合营, right? They joint venture with them. After 3 years, they completely nationalized all those enterprises. They're all gone. They all kick out.
Yeah, it's a capitalist is bad, right?
Right.
Yeah, they basically persecuted the capitalists.
In 1957, they started a big purging movement. And this time, they punished the free intellectuals who helped them win the power. Then after another few years, they punished those so-called 民主党派, okay, mm-hmm. those pro-democratic, allies. And then what about the farmers? They were completely deserted. Farmers was left on the countryside. They built this 户口 system, which is a household registration system, so that nobody can move away from their home. They are locked on their farmland. Okay, right. They cannot move. They stay poor. They stay controlled. They never appreciate those farmers that give them the power. Okay, the same thing is happening in this country. Okay, in my observation, just hear me out and see whether you agree with me or think it makes sense. The American communism is building their unified front. Now, who are they? Black people, Hispanic, and the native Indian, Asian. Asians still their allies.
Some of the Asians.
Some of the Asians, yeah. And the women, and then those companies. They convince them that join our force, we're going to create a very equal America. Okay, if you don't listen to us, we're going to boycott you. Companies are very, very, scared of, troubles, right? Mm-hmm. Business trouble. So because of that, they either buy them or just threaten them. They're not. They join their unified front. Okay, their target is now mainly the conservative, conservative and white people. That's their main enemy. So in order to defeat this enemy, they're going to build their unified front. Okay, so someday let's say they succeed because they have their lies, right? They have their systematic lie, beautiful promise, and they just fool those young people and black people and Hispanic and native Indian and so on and so forth into their camp, and say someday they defeat those conservatives, defeat the white people, and the white people, and now they're gonna deal with the people who join their unified front. Those 200 companies.
United Front.
Yeah, United Front. Those 200 companies, those big brand name, they someday when they got the power, they're gonna nationalize them. They're gonna take their money away. They're gonna take their power away. They're taking their brand away, like how the CCP is doing today. Okay, take Jack Ma's enterprise away. When they have the power, they're gonna take everything. Okay, and then finally, I dare to say this. Okay, I put things here. Okay, on the mark for the African American. Someday you will be deserted. Once they have the power, they build their communist palace. Okay, when they have the power, they sit on the helm of the power. They will never remember how black people helped them. Okay, because it's never in their equation, never in their formula. They are only the tool. in their asserting the power, in the process of asserting the power. So that's the situation. And I asked myself this question. So what if in China we went through 1949 again? Because the communists, they are so cunning. Their lie are so good. Their promise is so beautiful. And those young people, they're just fooled by them. And they are so systematic. They are so efficient. They're so effective. They are professional revolution. This is called what? Professional revolutionist. What is a professional revolutionist? It's a professional power usurper. Well, comparatively, the good people, the then nationalist party members, the average Chinese, just like average people like you're watching, you have to be busy with your daily living, okay? You don't have a full-time job as an activist, right? So you have to take care of your business, you have to take care of your kids, and you never think there's such people, just hideous people who want to just absorb the power of this nation. So we cannot compare with their effectiveness. So when 1949 replay again, what can China do? That's the question I ask myself and also ask my audience, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
So my question is this, okay? The way I do is this. I will tell them, in the last 1949, what happened in China? I just tell them at this time. Once I told enough people, the second 1949 will not happen. And this 1949 is today, is 2021. Okay? We feel obligated to tell as many Americans as possible, not just the conservative, not just Republican, also people on the left, also the Democrats. They are all, in our eyes, they are all good Americans. They don't know the hideous scheme of the communism that's manipulating them. Give them false promise, use them, and then desert them in the future. We need to tell them the world has seen communism play out for one entire century. What is left is only lie and death and destruction. We share enough with them, we share enough with you, we share enough with American, then American will say, oh, I see what will play out. Let's don't do it again. Yeah, that's how I see it. I think the truth is just like a needle. No matter how thick the lie is, it's going to come through that. And the program you're watching is one such needle, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because not only in China, right, also in Cuba, in Venezuela, we all know that those leftist leaders, how they do it, right? They come on board as a moderator,
yeah.
Modest, kind of a modest, right? But then they made a big promise, promising people they will build an equal world, justice world, and then they become just so left.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have to see through that, and so that's what we try to share with you. I saw a lot of people are responding. One just said. A holdist just said, I cancel my stock in Coke. Yeah, that's the action. You can really make them to feel that. So that's.
But better yet, write to them.
Right.
Tell them. You probably cannot tell everything that I just said, but at least tell them that as a consumer you don't like it, and you took the effort to write to them. Let them know that it's against their interest, and then don't believe their lies. It's just a very normal Georgia voting law. They should not be part of it. It will hurt their business, will hurt a lot of people who love their product. I think we should say to them. But again, what more I want to tell you is really from the bottom of my heart. We need to understand what is at work there. The American version of the communism is actively working there, from behind the scene. That's how they convince these 200 companies, drag them on board. They are doing themselves a big disservice, not just hurting their business now. Someday they will be destroyed by those, the tyranny of the communism, the entire company. We knew that. They will be nationalized, they will be breaking apart, they'll be taken away from them. And that's what communists do. Destruction. destruction and tyranny.
Yeah, they divide and conquer and then destroy everyone because what they only care about is grabbing the power. And the other side of the story, you may not have a lot of time to discuss today, is the Beijing Olympic in 2022, right? So right now, a lot of about 200 organizations, they sent a petition letter to all those governments and appealing that to boycott the Beijing Olympics because they don't believe that holding the Olympic game in Beijing will help improve the human rights as they try to claim. But in the United States government, right now still are hesitating, right? We know about from yesterday to today, they kind of changed their minds whether to consider to boycott. But at this point, I think what we try to tell people is maybe some people still think, oh, they are considering about the money whether they can make in China, but truly, if they really know the nature of the communists, and they shouldn't get any hope.
Yeah.
And we just wanted to tell no matter you think your friends or our government officials, they are maybe on the Democrat side or the leftist side, but actually from our perspective, largely the most of the American people are kind-hearted, and the people who are just some of them are just being confused.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
yeah.
misled by the communism.
The communism, they are very, very cunning, and they're very, very, just what's the word? Delusion. Anyway, they just cheat on people. They mislead you. And regarding this Winter Olympics, remember 2008 there was this Olympics in Beijing. That Olympics essentially booster the position of the CCP. Remember that on the same year there was this big earthquake in Sichuan, right?
Oh yeah.
And then the international society gave them this right. The Summer Olympics or Winter Olympics is not a normal sports. They use that to, just boost their position, convince the Chinese people. See, I'm the legitimate leader, even though nobody elected them to be the leader. I'm the legitimate leader. And all the killings, including what happened today in Xinjiang, has to do with that Olympics. So it's not such a simple matter. Anyway, America shall be strong, and should be principle-based, should not condone that type of extravaganza event for CCP to boost its position. Anyway, but essentially, I think for our own country, the key is learn from what the mankind learned in the 100 years. Okay, starting 1917, when the Soviet Union was first, established. 100 years killing and suffering and death and destruction. And it's not hard for us to learn that because it's not just opinion. This is a hard fact. It's just too few Americans know about that. We are very glad you are here with us. Let's spread the truth. Let's build this platform, including the Safe Chat, and we will let enough people know, including people on the left.
All right.
Thank you very much for staying with us. You are great, and really appreciate your being with us. And
So take care. We'll see you on Friday then.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.